Alright everybody, so today we're going to make a simple bezeled ring. This is the bezeled ring, okay, that I made. Alright, this is silver. I'm going to demonstrate with copper. These rings that you see here were also soldered. Part of this process is going to require you to be soldering. Most of you here have already gone through the process of learning what solder is, or have already gone through the process of annealing. Basically the same steps involved in turning on the acetylene torch, make sure your fans and lights are on. But when you're making your ring, you're going to want to make sure you measure your finger out. I have ring measurers for that, and also to design and cut out and manipulate your strip that you are going to want to make your ring. So for this one, I textured it, I cut out little grooves on it to make it as seen here. Your end part, you will want to have it as close as possible, no gap, right here, no gap, or a very small gap, okay? Smooth, it's already been sanded down, and you're going to try to get it as flat as possible because we will change it into the actual ring shape. So once you have it to this part, you'll want to use this flux here, handy flux, and just put a little bit onto it, both sides. Okay, so we have some here. This brush is terrible, but that's it. That side, put it on underneath as well. This is basically to keep your metal clean while we're doing the soldering, and also helps the solder stick. For this process, I will be using these grips right here to help me keep it stable. You can position it however you like. I like to have it just on here, but this will work for this process. And this is so you guys are actually able to see. Once you have that, you will need your solder. And the solder is silver. So if you're using any type of metal on here, besides silver, you'll actually see it. So I'm going to demonstrate with copper. So my solder sticks right on top, and it is a little bit too large, right? It is exactly the same size, which is not what you want. You want just a tiny bit smaller, right? Maybe a millimeter smaller, okay? So we have the solder there. Make sure your gas is turned on. And for this process, I will be using the bigger nozzle instead of the typical nozzle, okay? I'll be using something a little bit bigger. Solder will only work, it'll only flow when it reaches its temperature. This is easy solder, so this melts at about 500 degrees, okay? However, your whole metal has to be the same temperature, otherwise it's not going to work. It'll just bubble up. Let's get this show on the road. When you're doing this, keep your flame away from the solder as much as possible, okay? You basically just want to heat up the metal as you can, okay? Try keeping it away from the solder itself, okay? And you're like, well, that's super difficult. Well, challenge, okay? And you just want to try to get it as evenly heated as possible. I am going over, but I'm not keeping it on top of the solder, okay? Try to heat this all around, okay? And so as this process starts, it starts getting annealing. So you just probably saw it flow, okay? And it flowed away from the piece. You guys can see that, okay? It flowed over to the edge. The reason why, let's get that sort of in focus a little bit. So this is the solder, this is the metal itself. It flowed over here because that's where the heat was. That's why it's super important to make sure that your solder and your piece are being heated evenly, okay? Otherwise you'll get something like this.